What's up? Welcome to episode 162 of Throwback Hoops. My name is Rob Clayton, and I'm joined as always by one of the nicest people you will ever meet, Woody V. What's happening, bro?
Not so bad yourself, man. Thank you so much for the kind words. Always good to be here.
Thought I'd buddy you up early and get ready for this big podcast we've got. So, I actually felt like I had to add a few things to the run sheet we had planned today. There was a bit of unexpected NBA news, which we'll get to. Before we get into our jerseys, of course, just a reminder, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. All right, let's start off the show with some jerseys. Woods. I can see you doing the OKC theme today. I'm pretty sure I know who that jersey is, and I like that one. It was one I always wished I got. But
yeah, I've never actually worn it. It's the first time I've ever worn it. So
nice. Woods is standing, showing the number 12 OKC. Nice, Steven Adams jersey. Lovely jersey, that one. I remember Rebel was selling them a little bit from back in the day as well. Just obviously a Kiwi there, but yeah, nice looking jersey.
I actually got it at Rebel.
Oh, nice.
As soon as there, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get that, right? So first time I've worn it. Look, Steven, and I won't. I'm gonna try pronouncing his full name. Steven Funaki Paye Hai Ofa Kiloa Adams, right? He's a New Zealand basketball player. He's from New Zealand, as we know, and he plays for the Houston Rockets. After playing one season with the Wellington Saints in the NZBL, Adams moved to the United States where he played with Pittsburgh, right? He was selected by the OKC Thunder with the 12th overall pick in the 2013 NBA draft. And he started for the Thunder for, the best part of 6 seasons. In all, he spent 7 years with the Thunder before being traded to the New Orleans Pelicans for a short period before spending 2.5 years at the Memphis Grizzlies. Before being traded to the Houston Rockets. Now, he comes from a large family, Rob. He comes from a family of 18 different children. So his father, Sid Adams, fathered 18 children with 5 different women. Get that, right?
Busy boy.
And yes, he's got a long line of sporting prowess in his family. Dame Valerie Adams is a dual Olympic gold medalist, his sister, right? And she's a 4-time world champion shot putter, and Lisa Adams is a para-athlete, his sister who has won gold at the Paralympics in shot put, and his brothers Warren and Sid Jr. had careers in the NZBL. And he's also got another sister who's actually played for the New Zealand national basketball team as well. So
great effort, isn't it? I've actually got his biography somewhere behind me. It's somewhere in that pile over there. But yeah, really interesting read for those that haven't read it there. It's sort of, it goes in all that history there and sort of, amazing that size of that family. I always imagine, geez, you want to get to that food quick when it came out on the table, right? With everyone trying to get all
My Life, My Fight. It was released and co-written by his childhood friend and journalist, Madeline Chapman.
Yes, I had a good read of that in COVID, actually, when there's a bit more time when you couldn't leave the house and stuff. So, no, nice book and nice jersey. I like that. And the matching hat as well.
Let me just ask you something as well. Steven Adams, Jock Landale, we've talked about this 3-center rotation with Sengun as well in Houston. I've noticed lately Adams and Sengun have been playing a lot of basketball together, right? So what kind of role will Steven Adams have in the playoffs for the Rockets, where the game slows down a bit, there's a need for additional big men and bodies, right?
It's going to suit him more, isn't it? The scores get lower, the defense comes a lot more into it sort of thing. He's also that enforcer and someone with such a high IQ as well. They've got a lot of sort of shooting guards and guys like Fred VanVleet and Jalen and everything else like that. So he's going to be setting those high screens, rolling hard to the basket. But yeah, I think he's going to play a pretty big part. And great to see him back because he had some pretty bad injuries at Memphis, didn't he? I think there was even some thought that he was maybe going to retire or something. I remember hearing about a year ago. So he's had a good season. He stayed healthy, and we'll talk a little bit about Houston later on in the show. Man, they've been really impressive. So I'm liking it. Always like the combo of the jersey and hat as well. They would so. Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to show this one. Someone I really like, Woods. As soon as I stand up, you're probably going to know who this is. I don't think you know who it is yet. You know the team, but let me show you who I'm rocking today.
So for all our audio listeners that can't see, Robbie's wearing the Indiana Pacers number 9 TJ McConnell jersey. And yes, what a great story TJ McConnell is. 10 plus years in the NBA, right?
Yeah. How long have I liked this guy as well for, Woods? I've been telling people about him for years. So, today I'm wearing a Timothy John McConnell jersey. Haven't really heard him called that, have you? A yellow Nike Indiana Pacers jersey. I really like this jersey. I quite like yellow jerseys in general. Obviously, it's the Jumpman logo as well. So yeah, the man known as TJ has long been one of my favourites since being undrafted out of Arizona and then signed by the 76ers way back in 2015. So as you mentioned, long time in the league, 10 years plus. Signed a free agent deal with the Pacers in 2019. He's really been a fan favourite of the team ever since. Had a career season last season, the first season where he averaged over 10 points a game. Honestly, what a great backup point guard, Woods, and also a teammate that everyone just loves there. We've talked a lot about our trip that we did last year. I remember how impressive he was in those games. He came on against the Clippers in the game we saw in LA. He doesn't give a damn who he's guarding, right? He's going to just give it to him all day, Gives up a little bit of size, a little bit of speed, but such a high IQ there and just a great player there. And someone that, if the Pacers get any injuries to guys like Halliburton and that, he's going to come on and not, put a foot wrong sort of thing. So, yeah, really a big fan of this guy. What's your thoughts on TJ?
Look, when TJ first came into the league, right, under Brett Brown's tutelage, it was the process, the really bad Philadelphia teams. I was like, who is this guy? Like, he looked like he's an accountant or a lawyer. Definitely. I'm like, there's no way this guy is going to forge a career for himself in the NBA. But we saw in that rookie year itself, Brett Brown put faith in him, made him play meaningful minutes at important times, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something. I watched I think it was a documentary or a YouTube video many years back about David Blatt. And David Blatt had just finished out coaching with the Cavs. He'd been fired. He'd gone to Europe. He's running some sort of camp with some youngsters, right? And he said, look, if you think you need athleticism, quickness, all these different things to make it to the NBA, let me give you the story of two guys. And he talked about Matthew Dellavedova. He talked about TJ McConnell. And these guys were not blessed with they weren't jumping higher than anyone. They weren't dunking. They weren't jumping out of the gym,
Yeah.
They weren't knocked down three-point shooters, But they fought so hard. They used every little bit of skill and talent they could muster to make a career for themselves. So I think David Blatt was onto something there, right?
I've asked you offline as well. If he was to come to the NBL next season, TJ McConnell, would he be the walk-up MVP or not?
No.
I reckon he probably would, right? I think sort of what he can do, he could really come out and average close to 30 points a game. I know it's a weird comparison. It's not going to happen because he's still a really good player in the NBA. But I just think someone like him, you don't think so? You don't think he could be the man on a team after what he's done?
I think he could be decent. Like he plays a role, right?
He'd be more than decent.
Yeah. I mean, I think he plays a role on a team in Indiana, right? And he's alongside the likes of Miles Turner and Halliburton and whatnot.
Yeah.
When he's put in that front seat, in that driver's seat, could he still do it? I don't know. This is an interesting conversation you can have.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Certainly a beloved player, though, isn't he? The teammates love him there. You can see he's such a great teammate and someone I just really admire. I sort of, it's not all about these freakish athletes and everything else like that. Someone that, like you said, a lot of people, even a pretty serious NBA fan, could walk past this guy on the street. They would not even look twice and wonder who that is.
The John Stockton effect.
So it's pretty cool. Yeah, I think he's got a little bit of a better haircut than John Stockton, but yeah, definitely the similar effect there. So, so a bit of a shout out to Timothy John McConnell. I've actually got an autographed jersey of his as well, which is the blue Indiana Pacers jersey. Didn't want to quite take the tags off that one because I'm liking that as an autographed jersey, but maybe another day I'll rock it.
You got that NBA Store Australia, that blue one, didn't you?
Nah, I got that on one of the guys in the Facebook pages or something like that. It's got a real nice auto. It's a smaller size, though, the size 48, so I didn't want one of my guts sticking out on this one too much. But yeah, loving this yellow colour as well. So nice. Well, quick card of the week, Woods. I thought I'd show a card today. It's one of my all-time favourite NBL players. So it's not Bryce Cotton, so it probably nails it down to a few sort of certain Wildcats that have played.
Parky.
No, not Parky, a Wildcat, but no, Parky would have been a good choice. So this is an NBL Topps Chrome 23-24 all-time greats auto card of none other than Damian Martin. This is one that just arrived yesterday. Loving this card here. Tell you what, this was a hard card to get, Woods. You'd be amazed how many of these NBL cards, the Topps ones, are in America. And we knew that because when our good friend of the show, Sid, hooked us up a box and we went over there last year. Feels like about 50% of these are sold in America. So I feel like half the people opening them over there, or half the people opening wouldn't have any idea who these people were. But I could not find one of these in Australia, looking for at least 6 months. So one came up in America, so I had to wait a good month for it to arrive there. But yeah, really pleased to have this one. It's a really nice auto set, this one. There's guys like Leonard Copeland and Jason Smith and Al Green and Ray Borner and some of these sort of guys. So yeah, all-time greats they call it. So thought I'd show this one today. Loving this. I had to get a Damo Martin auto card in my collection. So that's this week's card of the week.
I think a lot of people like that when I post that on X later in the week.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'll definitely get you some photos of that one. So, all right, good stuff, Woods. Well, yeah, we've got a bit to talk about this week. We've got NBA. We've also got some interesting NBL free agency news and a few other little things, including a bit of an NCAA update. But we'll start off with NBA. We were going to start with a bit of a playoff race, but as I sort of teased at the start of the show, there was a big move in the NBA today. So I had to make this a bit of an emergency addition to the NBA part of the run sheet. So, Woods, if the recent Memphis coaching change was a shock, then I don't know what to say about today's news in Denver. So long-term coach Mike Malone was sacked today, and the GM Calvin Booth will not be retained after the season ends. So both of these guys led the team to the 2023 NBA championship. Malone's going to be replaced by a long-time assistant David Adelman, son of Rick Adelman there. So as I put in the run sheet, Woody, WTF? What is this? What's going on?
Firstly, it's the latest coach firing in the history of the NBA, right? So never has a coach been fired so close to the playoffs
3 games
in NBA
left,
history, right?
What is that?
Now, when I break it down, I want to look at two sides of it, right? And I've done a lot of research today and various media outlets to find out a little bit more about the situation, right? So Malone apparently had lost most of the locker room, and most importantly, there were rumblings that he and the Joker were at loggerheads, right? They've been 11-13 since the All-Star break, and their defense has taken a terrible hit since last year, with more or less the same personnel, let's say, right? So that's me talking about some reasons why they might have done it, right? But then you look at the other side of the coin. He's 2 years removed from being a championship coach, right? You also look at the fact that guys like Aaron Gordon, Peyton Watson's been injured. These two have been absolutely.
Jamal Murray's been injured. You
injured
never know
too.
what you're getting from him.
Yeah, but I mean, defensively wise, throughout the year, right? Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson have missed 20, 30 games, right? You know, and when you got rid of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and some of these other guys, Jeff Green from the championship,
Bruce Brown, because they were being cheap, right?
From the championship, they have not replaced them, right? And when you lose guys that are important to your defensive prowess, it's more evident when those gaps can't be filled. So Malone did have a bit of a hard run this year. Calvin Booth, you mentioned Calvin Booth and him, right?
Yeah.
Those two were not on talking terms. Apparently, they haven't talked for a long time.
That's terrible, isn't it?
Right? The GM and the head coach not talking.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Rick Adelman, right? And look, by all reports, they were going to make
David Adelman.
Dave Adelman.
Son
of Rick Adelman,
Yeah.
David Adelman. Sorry, my apologies. By all reports, they were going to get rid of both Booth and Malone at the end of this year. Anyway, right?
Yeah.
But my thinking is maybe they said, look, it's become untenable, this situation. We've got our playoffs. We're going to talk about it now. They're going to get a 4 or 3 seed, let's say, right?
Yeah.
They can win a couple of series, but here, and maybe they want to have a look at Adelman and see if he can connect with this playing group during the playoffs. It's almost like a trial to see if he can get a full-time job.
Well, he's been an assistant for 8 seasons, so he obviously knows every one of these players. He's been there longer than pretty much any player on there, I would have thought. So the timing's just crazy, Woods. A few things I read today. Apparently, Calvin Booth was really pushing for Malone to play a lot of the younger guys, was not agreeing with how much minutes that Russ Westbrook was getting. I know you love a good quote as well, Woods. I've got one from Josh Kroenke. So not a massive fan of the Kroenke family. They've sort of butchered, one of my teams over in London in the Premier League there. But yeah, the vice president basically came out and said there were certain trends that were very worrisome to me at different points here and there. And in the world of professional sports, when winning and losing is your currency, winning can mask a lot of things. So I think he's basically saying, look, even though we are, in that real playoff hunt and we've had a pretty good season wins-wise, there's things, behind the scenes which aren't good. So that was a pretty sort of damning statement there, I thought. But nevertheless, this is an absolute shock, isn't it? Like we said when, Memphis made the coaching change, if this was Philly or Washington or one of those sort of teams that's had a really low win number, maybe it's, okay, I can maybe see that. But this is just an absolute shock with 3 games left in the season. Pretty crazy as well, Woods. 4 of the last 6 coaches to win an NBA championship and no longer with the team. So for those playing at home, Nick Nurse was the first, from Toronto. Frank Vogel from the Lakers. Budenholzer, for Bucks, who will probably be looking for a new job next year, I would have thought as well. And now Mike Malone for the Nuggets. So I'll finish this off, Woods. I guess you can say Denver are now in the post-Malone stage.
For sure, man.
I
like the pun. Just quickly, though. When they lost that last game, was it yesterday they lost the game at the post-match press?
They've lost 3 in a row, I think now.
Yeah. But the most recent one they lost, right? At the post-match press conference, I listened to Malone, and he's just muttering swear words under his breath as he's walking off. And Joker was visibly upset. Who he was upset at was it could have been Malone, man. Could it be Malone?
It's a strange one, isn't it? Yeah. I reckon Mike Malone, maybe not next year. He might do one of those things where he takes a year off and gets in the broadcast booth, but 1,000% he will be an NBA head coach. Like, there's a few teams that will definitely be gunning for someone of him that's had all that success and, of course, the championship there. So, yeah, emergency part of the podcast. I think we're both on the same page and both very surprised with that, but it's probably one of those things that, there's more that meets the eye. Maybe more things will eventually come out. But, yeah, obviously wish, Coach David Adelman all the best there. And, taking over a team as a head coach with 3 games left and leading into the playoffs is something we've never seen before, and we certainly wish him all the best there. So, we'll stay with that, playoff seeding that we're talking about as well, Wood. So, and definitely we'll concentrate on the West. The West is crazy at the moment. So, at the time of recording, we've still got up to 9 teams that may finish in those 7 to 10 spots and basically be in the play-in there. So, crazily enough, 4th place Denver is only 1 game in front of these teams. In fact, I think Clippers may have moved up today.
Yeah, Clippers are at 4th at 47 and 32.
Yeah. So Clippers were 8th about 4 days ago. So they're now 4th, which is good form for them getting up to that 4th spot there. But I mean, this is crazy. These final games are going to be really interesting there, and there's going to be some meaningful ones. We saw the Lakers go down today. They've of course got that big game. I should say the time of recording, Woods, is Wednesday, the 9th of April. So Lakers have got that big trip to Dallas tomorrow for Luka to play there. I was wondering today, thinking out loud, wouldn't it be funny if they'd rested him in that game? I don't think that wouldn't go down too well. But they had a loss today. He got ejected against OKC, which wasn't a great look. But
I saw that, yeah.
Before we get into it, really, I wanted to give a big shout out to Houston, though, Woods. So they've locked up 2nd spot now. So obviously OKC is about 1 million games in front of everyone, but Houston's locked up 2nd spot, which is an amazing effort by them. I think I was quite high on them at the start of the season, but definitely not that high. So shout out to them. But look, let's talk these other spots. You mentioned the Clippers there. It's really hard to know what's going to happen, right? If you've got those standings in front of you as well, are Portland mathematically a chance still, or are they knocked out? Or last time I checked, there was still a chance that they might have changed over the last day.
Well, they played 79 games. Even if they win 3, they'll get to 38. And the Mavericks are on 38 as well. So, I mean, technically they do.
They're still mathematically, Minnesota seemed to be the big loser of the last week. They've slipped and they let one go today. But, yeah, give me some thoughts on this crazy race and maybe what you think might end up happening.
Yeah, I just think that I think the 2 LA teams are probably going to lock up the 3 and 4 seed. I've seen the Nuggets taking a hit. They've got 3 games left, right? They've just changed the coach. I know you've got your new coach theory and stuff, but let's just say they win 1 out of the next 3 games, right? They win the next 1, they lose the next 2 after that, right? I'm just guessing here. They'll be on 48. Then you see Clippers and the Lakers win 2 out of their next 3, which is highly possible. I saw the Lakers schedule, and they should win 2, if not 3 out of.
They should win. Yeah, it's an easier run, isn't it? Yeah.
So.
What about Golden State? They're in pretty good form at the moment. They could sort of finish anywhere as well, couldn't they?
Yeah, I just don't want to see a Lakers Golden State first round series. And if there's a 3-6 situation here, one of those teams is going to miss out. I'd really like to see both of them progress to the second round, but it's looking like that. I think. Yeah. I mean, look.
It's exciting, isn't it? We're obviously getting those extra teams in contention. This is what the play-in was kind of invented for. But, put some. What do you?
I'm going to tell you what I think. All right, Thunder 1, Rockets 2, Lakers 3, Clippers 4. I think the Warriors are going to go 5. I think the Nuggets are going to drop to 6. The Grizzlies are going to be 7th. The Timberwolves 8th, and I think it'll just stay as it is with the Knicks and Mavericks at 9 and 10. Right.
So Kings and Mavs, you mean?
Kings and Mavs. Sorry.
Kings and Mavs at 9 and 10. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's going to be really interesting watching these last few games. Normally it feels like a lot of things decided. There's certainly not going to be teams tanking. And, well, unless they're trying to tank for certain matchups, that may be something that, the teams have got their whiteboards out and planning ahead who they might want to play and everything else like that. But, yeah, what a fun race, though, with this last half a week of games. In the Eastwoods, it's very different, isn't it, really? The playing teams have been decided for about a week now. The Celtics made a small run on the Cavs there, but the Cavs have now clinched that number 1 spot. So it looks like that order of the top 6 in the East, it may not even change there. The play-in, Orlando beat our Hawks today, so it looks like Orlando is definitely going to host a playing game. But, Hawks, Miami, and Chicago, there's literally a game between them. So bit of a danger there. I would have liked the Hawks to get that 8th spot there, and then you get a second chance, essentially, don't you, if you lose and play the winner of the 9-10 game there. So Hawks really need to get their act together and try and win their last 3 games there. But wanted to ask you about the East. Is there any teams that you could maybe see making a surprise sort of run in there? I'm looking at maybe teams like Indiana, Detroit, even a team like I mentioned, like Orlando, now they're healthy. Any of those teams you see doing any upsets there?
Cavs, Celtics, Knicks, and Pacers. I definitely think the Pacers are a really good team. You know, they've got another year's experience, right?
Yeah.
And they might get the number 4 seed and play against the Milwaukee. I'd back the Pacers to beat Milwaukee in a 7-game
I mean,
series.
crazy eyes. Bobby Portis is back today, but yeah, Milwaukee they just seem off, don't they? Obviously, they're missing Dame there. I feel like they're not going to win a first round series.
No.
What about New York? Jalen Brunson's back now. Are they a team that could maybe make a deep run in the East?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If they got the Pistons in the first round, you'd think that they'd get through with Jalen Brunson there.
Yeah.
But then let's just say the Pacers win, right? You know, do they face the Pacers in a second round matchup, or how does it look like there?
Remember
right?
that Pacers Knicks series last year, right? The Pacers played great in that series there. So, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And look, full credit to Cleveland for clinching that number 1 seed. I mean, nobody would have picked that at the start of the season. Nobody. If anyone's saying they would have picked that, they're a liar. Speaking of which, we need to go in and check those great predictions and that team wins pool thing that we did that was quite fun. So maybe I'll have a bit of an update of that next week, because I think by the time we record next week, at the last day of the regular season would have occurred there. So I think the playing games are due to start Wednesday next week, so basically a week from us now. So exciting. Let's quick talk on the Hawks there, right? So look, it's another play-in, right? It's a little bit disappointing we couldn't get above it. Have had a lot of injuries. I'm sure if Jalen Johnson had been healthy, and that's always a bit of a what if, we would have been a few spots higher, there's no doubt. But what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the season? We're going to finish below 500 again, right around like we predicted. What are your thoughts on the Hawks, and can we do anything here?
No. I mean, we can get to the first round, and get some experience into some of these guys, which is going to be good. But I said it earlier in the season, right? I feel like this is Jalen Johnson's team, not even Trey's team. I feel it's Jalen Johnson's team, right?
Yeah.
And this team is going to go as far as he takes us. He's just such a plus on the floor, right? You talk about a guy like. We're talking about a guy like Malone, man. His whole offense is created around the Joker, right? He's so important to that team. I'm not saying Jalen Johnson is that important, but he's just a Swiss Army knife. Does a little bit of everything. He's a connector on the floor, and we saw all the games that he played early in the season. The team looked completely different. So I think we should be pretty happy with some of the moves that we've made. Dyson Daniels' ascension from. It's been ridiculous, right?
Yeah. He better get an award, whether it's an MIP award or a defensive player. I'll be really
MIP, man. He's got to get the MIP, right?
You never know with these things, right? And it just feels like they're going to give this defensive player. A lot of teams have are sort of promoting their players for defensive player of the year. Clippers are doing it with Big Zoo. Golden State's doing it with that nutcase Draymond Green. So who knows what will happen there? I think he deserves defensive player of the year probably more than MIP, but it might be MIP that he's more likely to get there.
I'll take either, because I think Evan Mobley really deserves defensive player of the year as well. So I mean there's a pretty even contest between those two. There's Zubac talk as well for defensive player of the year.
Really promoting him. He's had a great year. I don't know whether he's quite defensive player of the year. Of course, Triple J as well is probably one of those early favourites as well. So a lot of players in the running. When you think of MIP, there's not a lot of other players that jump straight out there. So maybe it's someone that the voters are like, well,
that's what I
we
was
wanted
thinking.
to give him defensive player of the year. Let's at least make sure he gets something. But the future looks great with Dyson Daniels.
Going back to that, the nucleus is good. Okongwu's ascended to that starting lineup, killing it now. A lot of good signs. You get Jalen Johnson back next year. Probably need to bring in a few more pieces, those winners, to surround around some of these guys. But I think we should be pretty happy with this year.
Yeah, it's a funny one. You think, look, playing under 500, are we happy? Yeah, look, I think given some of the things we talked about, the Clint Capella injury is bad. We missed a lot of guys, even sort of key rotation guys like Larry Nance Jr. We're not going to listen to a full Hawks podcast, but had some of those guys have been healthy. I do think we maybe might have got up an extra spot.
Sure.
But anyway, it's all irrelevant now. But hopefully wish them all the best. If it is Orlando, that was a tough game. Orlando's a tough team, man. I was watching them today. They are defensive. They're a team of bullies, right? They will lay a body on you every shot, and they kind of force the refs to make calls. I felt like the refs, lost control a little bit in that game. There was a few little scuffles, which was fun, and George Niang was at the centre of those. So he's a good teammate. I like it. He comes in to bat for anyone pretty much. And then he just talks trash at them for the rest of the game. So, but we'll see how that goes. But look, either way, Woods, I'm really looking forward to both of these playoff runs. Certainly the West in particular. I think after each day passes with these last 5 days, we'll be a little bit closer to knowing that order. But we could see it could change dramatically, right? Teams that are third spot now can end up finishing seventh. So this is where you've got to, get into some good form.
And next week I'm hosting the show, so what we'll do is we'll go through each series and just give
Yeah.
our predictions one by one. Yeah.
Awesome, and I'll do that homework and try and do. We can because that's when we'll have the the wins pool thing. I've got no idea how that's going to go. I'm not sure who had Cleveland, not sure who had Houston. Some of these teams that are probably surprised. I have a feeling I might have had both of them for some reason, so that could be interesting for me for the wins there. But nice one, Woods. Well, we're going to go straight on to some quick hits because there's quite a bit going on. We'll start off with NBL Free Agency. So that opened last Friday. Look, it was a little bit quiet for a few days, wasn't it? Sort of the main moves were, Adelaide signing Michael Harris from the Wildcats and Isaac White from Brisbane there. So, and they also continued, or will stick with Adelaide. They also signed Flynn Cameron from Melbourne United, which I thought was a great get there. So essentially they've signed 3 guards. I think a lot of people assumed New Zealand were going to get him, right? And he'd go home to his home country there, but Adelaide got him, so I thought that was a good signing firstly there. Any thoughts on any of those signings for Adelaide? They lost Nick Marshall, I should say, as well.
Yeah, he went to Tasmania, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think Isaac White really showed last year what he could do when James Bateman went down. He got thrust into a bigger role, and James Schuller trusted him. He's a proven quantity in this league.
Yeah.
So if you can get a local guard like Isaac White, who'll be an 8th, 9th guy off the bench, I think that's good for Adelaide.
Yeah.
He's a good culture guy as well, and Adelaide need to build that. So yeah, I like that signing.
Michael Harris, look, I liked him on the Wildcats. He just wasn't getting a go there. I think he was a DP with Adelaide, wasn't he? So he's going back there. So I'd like to see him get a good run. I think he's a really good shooter there, and I'd like to see him get a chance there. Before we go into the big move, there were a couple of Kiwis returning to the Breakers. Unfortunately, it's not Yanni Wetzel or any of these sort of big name players or Sam Wardenberg or any of these sort of guys. So they've brought back Ruben Tarangi and your boy Isaiah Maori Huhuliafa.
Keep him.
Yes, not probably the signings that they were wanting when they were talking about getting some local talent. You'll take those guys. Tarangi's serviceable. You'd expect Liafa to maybe have a slightly bounce back year, and that's probably an understatement after the performance he put up last year. But
the only way is up from last year for him.
Pretty much, right. They're trying to get local talent. So whether it's a Flynn Cameron or, who am I thinking of?
Finn Delaney.
Finn Delaney.
No, he's going to Melbourne.
Sorry. Well, that's what the rumours are saying. Yeah, the rumours are saying that. But, he's a former Breakers player. Yanni Wetzel as well. They'd love to get both of those guys. But we'll watch with interest there. But that brings us down to the big signing so far, Woods. The team with the big pay, the big wallet, right? The money they get down the sofa. They reached out and got probably the biggest name in free agency, right? The Sydney Kings signing Matthew Dellavedova to a 3-year contract, I believe. Bit of a surprise with him leaving United. You got the finals MVP. There was talk that he met with Perth, Sydney, and Brisbane there. We know Sydney's obviously got, the connections with Bogut and Brian Goorjian and that sort of stuff. But firstly, what are your thoughts on that? It's a 3-year deal for an aging player, but look, someone that I know you've always been a big fan of. So you've got to be quite happy, right?
Really happy. And I think the thing about Sydney was, last couple of years, the point guard play was all over the place, right? Jalen Adams is fit, he's injured, then you've got whoever starting, you need a guy that's going to be able to run the offense properly, get the team into their sets. And a guy like Goorjian, right, will appreciate a guy like Matthew Dellavedova being the head of the quarterback, right? And then Andrew Bogut, right? These guys have a long friendship dating back to their childhood days.
Absolutely. That must have played a big part, right?
Massive part, right?
Yeah.
And this wasn't about money. I don't think the Kings opened up their checkbooks here. The Kings gave him that long-term deal, which will take him through to the next Olympic Games. And he has his sights set on playing the next Olympic Games, right?
It's a little bit ambitious, but yeah, good luck to him. And look, the way he played last season, you wouldn't rule it past him. He's the sort of player that someone says you can't do something, he's probably going to do everything he can to do it there. How does this mean for Sydney now? Because that's that's another marquee player. You've got Cooks, you've got Bull Quoll, and you've got Delhi now. Does that mean they're only going to be able to go potentially with one import, or how do you sort of see that playing?
Yeah, we'll have to see what the Delhi price tag was. As I told you, I don't think
I would have thought.
Yeah, I don't think as much as you would say, because I think he wanted that long-term deal to stay, and the other teams weren't willing to give him more than a 1 or 2 year deal, right? So getting through to the Olympics gives him that security. And I think at this point in time, is money really important to Delhi? At 34, 30.
I know one thing for sure. I can see you rocking a nice purple or a yellow or a white Dellavedova jersey next year. What about Melbourne, though? Pretty disappointing to lose Flynn Cameron and Delhi. Probably their best player from the finals and their really up-and-coming player. They must have a plan in place, right? We're not sure about what's happening with Jack White. Maybe JLA comes back. But, yeah, you've got to say a little bit disappointing for them so far, losing those two.
Definitely. I mean, someone like Flynn Cameron played himself out of that, right? Because he's going to have a very prominent role. I wouldn't even be surprised if he started at the 36ers, right? What did you say? The 36ers have got
100%.
3 guards now, right?
Yeah, that's who they got in there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if he started there. So, for him to have a more prominent role, the move was always going to happen. And he showed that he has the ability to play more minutes in this league this season itself.
For sure.
As far as Delhi's concerned, 2 years in a row, the heartbreak of two, you know, championship losses in the finals, right?
Yeah.
Also, what does he want to achieve now? He's an NBA champion, right? He wants to win an NBL championship, right?
Yeah.
And he wants to go to another Olympic Games, right?
Yeah.
And
Gives
also,
him a
we've
good
got the World
opportunity to go
Cup
there.
between the Olympic Games as well, which he might be a part of.
Yeah.
Brian Gorgian, Andrew Berger, these guys there. What the Kings do need to do now is we did not have a lob threat, a rim runner last year, right? We've seen Delhi going back to his days with
that's what
Tristan
they need,
Thompson,
right?
going
Yeah.
back to Tristan Thompson and
Yeah.
you
Maybe
know,
they can sign Tristan Thompson.
Ariel Hakporti and Marcus Lee, whoever it may be. You need to get that rim running big and a lob threat to work with Delhi.
Could Marcus Lee be a target there? I think I heard he's probably not going back to Melbourne. Could they try and get him? And he's going to sort of work his way through the whole league and play with each team. That could be a decent signing there. I wouldn't have thought. He's not going to be cheap, but he's not going to be a crazy, a guy straight out of the NBA that might command a little bit more money. So that'd be a pretty good fit there. But we know that Sydney need a big guy. That was probably the thing.
Yeah,
that,
I think Gorge will pull his hair out with Bull Cole and Marcus Lee fouling all the time, right?
Yeah, that's true. Will Delhi be making the subs on the team now as well? Will he sort of just be that extension of?
I think I'll let Andrew Berger do that, man.
Yeah, maybe he might be doing that, right? Nice. So,
like it.
we'll continue to sort of update these moves as they come in. I'm sort of, checking it each day, and apart from the Delhi and maybe the Flynn Cameron, it hasn't been any massive moves so far, but we'll certainly watch with interest. But it's a fun sort of time of year to follow that. Woods, I'm going to throw this one to you. The NCAA final was yesterday. Florida beating Houston in a thriller, 65-63. I know you're all over this game there. So, look, the Gators had a really good spread of scoring, didn't they? And it was great to see young West Aussie Alex Condon have a really big game, 12.7 rebounds, 4 steals, and some nice defensive stops near the end. Also, my brother from another mother, Woods, Walter Clayton, started slowly, but he really came up big later. Like the way that guy plays.
Love Walter Clayton, man.
What's the chances I'll literally buy his jersey, whichever team drafts him the day he gets drafted, because there's never been a Clayton in the NBA. I've got a Clayton NFL jersey. You've got Mike Clayton that used to play back in the day. So I cannot wait. Look, it'd be amazing if the Hawks got him, but I'll be buying a jersey for whichever team gets that guy, and I'll be sort of rooting for him to go well. So like the way he goes about it. Look, for the Cougars there, it was only really LJ Cryer. He was the only player in double figures scoring 19. Look, it was sort of,
Give the audience the score, man. What's the overall score?
No, I said that, yeah, 65-63.
Yep.
So, yeah, it came down to the last play there. So, look, for Houston, they had a massive comeback win against Duke. For those that haven't seen it, Duke were up 7 points with about a minute left, and everything went Houston's way, and they won it there. So, look, it'll be a bit of a heartbreaker for them there. And for Florida, it continues that success there. We saw the ever handsome Al Horford in the crowd there, Woods. He had a couple of titles with them in the noughties, playing alongside guys like Joakim Noah and Corey Brewer and those sort of guys there. And team that I really enjoyed back in the noughties there. So give me some thoughts on this game. I know you enjoyed this one.
Oh, man, Houston just play with heart, right? This is a team that doesn't have any superstars. It's the sum of the parts that actually make them successful throughout the tournament. And, they're dogs on D, man. And then they got to that 12, 13-point lead. And, Florida had come back from double-digit deficits previously, multiple times during the tournament, right? So they'd been in that situation before, and they just ran out of steam, man. Literally, they were up 6-4, and then didn't lead till 63-61 or something like that, right?
Yeah. Wasn't that final play a bit of a mess as well? Where the guy had the shot and jumped up in the air, and his teammates didn't kind of notice. He was like almost wavering to come and get it, because if he touched that, that would have been a
double dribble,
yeah, and they just didn't quite get onto it late. Give me some thoughts on Alex Condon. I think I'm maybe a little bit higher on him. That could be my bias for someone from Western Australia there. I think he's a good chance of going late first round. Former COE player as well. And,
well, I just checked this morning. He's up to 25 on the draft boards now, right?
I like some of the stuff he's got, right? He's pretty mobile, right? He can extend the defense there, screen rolls, he can switch out onto a guard there. He's quite mobile. As I mentioned, 4 steals. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Alex Condon?
Look, the Hawthorn, it's the Hawthorn Football Club have got to deal
Collingwood,
with Collingwood have got to deal with him that if he doesn't get drafted, and they're paying him now.
Very talented junior by all accounts, yeah.
So I think to Collingwood, sorry guys, this guy's going to the NBA. My knock on him, and I've watched a few of his games and a few of his highlights throughout the tournament in this season, right? Is his hands sometimes, his ability to catch balls. he drops them a lot, and then his footwork. You saw in the first half yesterday, he got called for 3 or 4 travels, right? But what he does do well is he's a great rebounder. He boxes out. He's a great rim runner. He sets great screens. He's a great teammate, right?
Yeah.
And he's a winner. He's a winner.
Yep.
Some of these
shown that.
things you can learn, right? You know, and you know, you can get better. You can improve your skill set, your footwork, your ability to catch the ball in traffic and things like that. He can work on those things.
Exactly. I think he's come a long way as well. I think he's someone that's very coachable there. So if he gets into a good system and, you know, a system that's got some good big men coaches there, I think, you know, he could really improve. You know, he's got a bit of an outside shot. That's obviously something that's going to have to be a weapon for him to find a place in the modern day NBA as a big there. But I'm really excited to see, you know, where he ends up. We saw Tyrese Proctor. He started the NCAA tournament so well with Duke. Sort of fizzled off a little bit, was pretty poor in that, you know, semi-final where the Houston Cougars beat him there. So his draft stock might have sort of gone up a bit and then dropped a little bit like that. But it's great to see that we should have some, you know, good young college players who are coming through, and then we'll see what happens with some of these, you know, guys. Like we saw Lockie Albrigh's declared for the draft now. We know Rocco Zikarsky, Ben Henschel, some of these guys, Alex Tui, who I think is, you know, going to be certainly be a decent draft pick there, maybe late first round. I mean, so looking forward to it.
Condon, there's some food for thought for Condon to go back and do another year. Right?
There is,
you know?
I agree. Yeah. So we'll find out what he sort of says. You know, does he want to defend it, or is that, you know, good enough for him? Does he want to join his, you know, teammate in my brother from another mother in Walter Clayton and declare there? So yeah, it was enjoyable, wasn't it? So yeah, it's always good to watch that game. It's a bit of a standalone game. I know they had 2 early NBA games yesterday, but it was good to kind of watch that. It's a very different style, isn't it? College. I was thinking that when they still do 1-on-1. So I think it's the only league in the world that is still doing 1-on-1. So for people that don't know that, if you know, teams in the bonus, if you get fouled, you have 1 free throw. If you get it, you get a second one. If you miss it, it's live off the rim. So this was a rule that was in the NBL when we were, you know, growing up in the 80s.
Pete Hansen shooting 1990 free throws in the final against the Spectres. Right?
And I remember playing with this rule as well in the early 90s. It just, when I forgot they still do 1-on-1. It just seems like a really like old-fashioned sort of, you know, play there. But obviously they've got some old-fashioned rules in college ball.
1990 or 91 was the last year that the NBL did it, right?
It's a long time, right? Yeah, it's interesting that they do it there. So I wonder why they sort of, you know, like I said, you know, FIBA doesn't do it, the NBA doesn't do it, Europe doesn't do it, and NBL doesn't do it. They just seem to be the only one that seem to like that rule there. So anyway, but yeah, big credit to the Florida Gators there. You know, one of my favourites, the Gators. They're not, you know, Michigan's a team I go for. I've always had a soft spot for Florida. And yeah, congratulations on them winning again. I wanted to give a really quick NBL1 update, Woods, just before we go to some true and false.
Sure thing, man.
I got to call my first games last weekend. So Sutherland came to town to take on the mighty Hills Hornets. So it was the first up victory for the Hills Hornets girls, which is huge, winning by 14. Last year in the corresponding game, Loz Nicholson got 44 points, but they beat Hills by about 30. So it was a really big turnaround for Hills. They've signed some good WNBL talent. So I'm looking forward to you to come. I know you always say you're going to come and then you find a reason not to, but I know you're coming to the next game when they take on North.
5th of May.
Yeah, it's election day. So that's a day to remember there. So looking forward to that. For the guys, it wasn't quite as good. They ended up going down by 7, but really impressed by a current Sydney Kings of yours in Jason Spurgeon there. So, yeah, didn't know what to expect. Obviously, haven't seen a lot of him on the court. He's a massive unit there, but he impressed. He moved pretty well. He actually got a steal and ran basically half the length of the court and threw it down. Obviously, a good defender and rebounder, but pretty good IQ, and a former Sydney King, Lachlan Hutchinson, point guard there, was really good. So I thought Sutherland were pretty good, and I had high hopes for him. And then yesterday they decided to sign Kawat Noi for the rest of the season. So firstly, a bit of a bummer. I won't get to commentate him because he'll be coming in a few weeks. But that team, he came out and said he thinks the NBL1 East is the best NBL1 product in Australia now. Maybe a big call, but honestly, some of the players that have come over this year, talking, you know, Todd Blanchfield, Kawat Noi, Jason Kadee, Jalen Galloway. So the first few years I was doing it, like the big name players were players like Archie Woodhill and stuff like that. So Bawali Bales is another player playing it again this year. So and McDowell White, the younger brother of Will there, is really playing well for Illawarra. So, yeah, really good to see that. I think it's a big coup for the East and a massive coup for Sutherland. Shout out to our friend Jacinta on the East Got Game podcast. She wants me to send through some tips, predictions for the season. So I'm going to pick the Sutherland men's team to win it now for that signing. Because if you've got a team that you've got Kawat Noi, who's, you know, he's been MVPs of, you know, other NBL1 competitions, alongside Lockie Hutchinson and a genuine 7-footer in Spurgeon, that's a winning team for me. So, but yeah, just thought I'd just talk about those games, Woods. There's a break now for the commentating. There's a game this week, and then there's an Easter break. So we're back in action in November, and then there's a heap of games, Woods.
In May, you mean?
In May, sorry. Yeah, what am I saying? In May. So there's a lot of games here to come to. I was actually having a nice chat. I didn't tell you this actually with none other than Todd Blanchfield yesterday as well. So looking forward to catch up with him when Illawarra come to town next month. And lovely guy, as you can imagine. So yeah, that's my little NBL1 wrap there, Wood. So all right, let's get into some NBL and NBA true and false to wrap this one up. I've got a few questions today, so I'll start off with this one. I probably know what you'll say with this, but Sydney are the early championship favourites after the big signing of Delhi.
False.
True or false?
Massive false.
Really?
Yeah, massive false. This is what you were saying
that
last
sort of
year.
card with.
You give the Kings to the Rings. They've got a special account, and everyone in the media was saying that last year.
Well,
right?
they do have a special account, but I'm still saying that.
False, absolutely false.
False. Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, we need to see what some of these other teams are doing, right? Who's Perth going to replace, Bryce Cotton with? How are Melbourne going to reload? Southeast, are they going to run it back? Tasmania, are they going to improve? So I thought I'd just judge and gauge your interest in that one. So that's probably a fair answer. I'm going to say false.
Team captain's coming back from a drug suspension. There's been a lot of problems. We don't have the right personnel. We don't have a big man yet. Spurgeon, by the way, you just mentioned him earlier in your NBL1 discussion. It'll be nice having Andrew Berger there to, be a little bit of a tutor for him.
That'll work wonders for him, right? Yeah, because he's got some skills there, I tell you. He had a pretty good college career at Bowling Green, I believe, there. So, yeah, he's someone I think Berger can mould there. So, all right, fair answer. And I agree. I think it's too early to probably say. I just wanted to see what you'd say there. Second one for NBL. So I thought this is an interesting one, Wood. So Brisbane made the right choice in hiring new coach Stu Lash, which was just announced last week. False.
I would have preferred they even hired Derek Rucker, which is an absolutely crazy idea, right?
Yeah.
Stu Lash,
This was a shock, right? I've got to say false as well. I was checking on X after this announcement was made, Woods. There was at least 3 former Brisbane Bullets players that were literally just doing laughing emojis on the reply to that. I'm not going to mention names and throw them under the bus there, but thought that was pretty interesting seeing literally 3 former players all just like, what is that? So, never been a head coach anywhere, I believe. Yeah, it's strange.
He's on the Denver Nuggets coaching staff.
Yeah, there was talk they were trying to go after Chase, but I'm surprised about that. I think they wanted him to do like an office type role, and then they were talking to him about that. And like, hang on, would you be interested in the head coaching role? That came up on the podcast with Peter Hooley this week. So a big surprise, right?
And you think guys like Greg Vanderjagt, Darryl McDonald, just sitting there on the sideline, not getting that opportunity, it beggars belief, man.
We know what that means as well now, Wood. So there's only 2 Australian-born head coaches out of 10 teams in the NBL, which I thought was crazy. It's the lowest it's ever been. So John Rillie and Vickerman. So 2 out of 10 teams have got.
And John Rilly's confused about where he's from anyway.
Yeah, exactly. His accent's a bit random, isn't it? So pretty crazy news there. So yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. The next one, you know where I'm going with this answer, Woods, because he helped me, I think, maybe beat you in a fantasy comp this week. But shout out, you did win our main fantasy league. But Danny Avia from the Portland Trailblazers will be a future NBA All-Star.
Yeah, that's a true for me. And I mean, I think the Wizards just gave up on him too early, right? He was like in a dumpster fire of a situation there. He comes to Portland, and I have to really say, I'm sorry, okay?
Chauncey Billups getting an apology. Yeah.
I was really, really harsh on you earlier in the season, but the work you've done with this team, developed some of these guys. My knock on you was playing DeAndre Ayton too much and not developing the younger guys, but you've done that really well, and I was wrong.
Well, for those, good apology. For those that think we're crazy talking about that, have a look at some of his stats. And this is a team that's still contending for a play-in spot now, albeit they're probably unlikely to make it. But Danny Avia, amazing player. Some of the numbers he's put up there, he's basically a walking triple-double. He's an amazing rebounder for his size. I can't count the amount of games where he's had like 16 rebounds in a game there. He can pretty much do it all. He can hit the outside shot. Really smart player. I think he's 24 years of age off the top of my head there. So, he's someone that I do think has a bright future. And why not? Why can't he be a future NBA All-Star? And probably, hopefully a better prediction than my Torian Prince one a few years ago. But, hey, I've had some other good ones, bounce back ones from that. Nas Reed and other ones like that. So
Definitely a better prediction. I mean, one statistic I did see, though, when he was playing with DeAndre Ayton for many games, his productivity was just took a hit. Took a hit, right? So
that's because he's a hard player to play with because he's rubbish.
Yeah. So not just Aiden, but if he was alongside Robert Williams or whatever, right? So you got to take these statistics, these gaudy numbers he's put up in the back half of the season with a grain of salt. That's not going to last, right?
No, fair enough. Yeah. And little tip as well, I do have a Denny Avia jersey on the way, which I'm looking forward to get, the nice white Portland Trailblazers. So it's a nice random one there. So, all right, last true and false, Woods. I think this is probably an interesting one with about 3 games left. The NBA MVP race is not yet over.
Yeah, I think so. I think today with
it is.
with what happening with all the Denver, just too much shade around Denver now. It's gonna go to SGA, man.
All right, give me some percentages now. Obviously, we know it's a two-horse race. What percentage are you saying SGA wins it? And what are you giving?
70.
70-30. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was actually thinking something similar. So I guess there's a slim hope, right?
yeah.
I don't know whether these last three games could change. I don't know if the Joker goes out and gets 50 points in each of these games, whether that little swings it there. I do think it'll be SGA. I think both of them are really deserving winners there, right? But I think it goes down to that wins total, and OKC's far in front, and that's probably enough, right?
Yeah. Something just came up. I just want to mention it. Malone getting fired, right?
Yeah.
When you're coaching the Nuggets and you've got Joker, right?
Mm.
The whole offense revolves around him. You can't really change that much up. A new coach coming in at Edelman still has to have the same principles. This is
Yeah.
slightly different from Taylor Jenkins, who wasn't putting Ja Moran in pick and roll situations and playing a different style of play that wasn't conducive for the Memphis Grizzlies roster, right?
Yeah.
So the next coach that comes in, they've got a blueprint for success that they can follow, right? It's about connecting with the players more so than Malone, probably, right?
No, true. And going back to this MVP race, Woods, you've been an SGA fan. Have you got his Clippers jersey, I believe, right? Which not a lot of people have got. So you've got to be pretty happy with this.
Yep.
I don't think even you would have seen he would have been an MVP. No. Maybe you would have, I don't know. But when he got traded in that, trade to, from Clippers to OKC, where the Clippers gave up so much, I suggest people, Google that and look what they gave up there. Even you wouldn't have picked this to happen.
No,
Right?
I saw the Penny Hardaway potential though. That's what I thought of him, like the big guard. He can play. He's got great vision. So
Yeah.
I thought he'd be an all-star, but never in my wildest dreams would I have thought he'd put up these kind of numbers.
Yeah, no, fair call. All right, that was fun there, Wood. So, well, look, we're going to hold off on some classic packs. Probably do that in the next couple of weeks. We've got some packs on the way, right, Wood? So we might have one more we can maybe do, next week, and then we'll see how we go when these other ones arrive. But yeah, that's going to take us to a bit of an outro now. It's been a really fun show, Woods. It's interesting. NBL's finished, but we still had an interesting segment on that, and talking about some of these player movements. I, for one, cannot wait for this NBA playoffs to start this year. I think it's going to be really even. We can see in the West how tight it is now. I mean, yeah, OKC and Cleveland have both, big leads in their corresponding conferences there, but it does feel very open this year. Looking forward to see how it goes. So, yeah, just a reminder, as I mentioned at the start of the show, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be followed on X at Throwback Hoops, Instagram throwback.hoops, and email address throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Woods will be posting, this lovely Damian Martin card and maybe a bit of a TJ McConnell jersey and a Stephen Adams jersey. So keep an eye out for that. We love doing that sort of stuff. And we mentioned Patreon each week. Anyone that wants to pledge some support to us, to help out with, quite a considerable cost that we still have to bring this podcast each week, we'd be, appreciative of any support there. Before we finish off, Woods, any closing words of wisdom, any thoughts? The floor is yours.
Look, I mean, NBA playoffs are starting. I hope everyone has a good Easter break. I think that's coming up soon, the playoffs starting. So, yeah, exciting times. Until we do it all again next week, it's peace out, yeah?
Absolutely, can't wait. Yeah, just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thanks for that continual support. The numbers have been tracking really well these last few weeks. We do have some guests coming up. It's sort of been a little bit on hold. Woods and I are both really busy with our Monday to Friday 9 to 5 jobs. Well, they're not 9 to 5, I wish they were, but we've definitely got some guests sort of in the bag, sort of thing. I'm looking forward to bringing some of these in over the coming month or so. But yeah, as Woody said, it's a big peace out from the Throwback Hoops crew, and we'll do it all again soon.